And what we typically do at the end of the talk is that if you can leave your questions in the chat, then we can go through them when we get there. But let me just introduce our speaker for today. So Beth Carter, who just walked out of view but is back in view now, is a Lucy alumna who studied for an M.Phil in social anthropology with us a couple of years ago. And she is now the curator at the Bill Reid Gallery of Northwest Coast Art. The Bill Reid Gallery is the only public gallery in Canada dedicated to contemporary Indigenous Northwest Coast art, and was established by the Bill Reid Foundation in 2008 to celebrate the Haida master artist, Bill Reid, and the diverse living cultures of the Northwest Coast. Beth previously worked as a director and curator at the Nikkei National Museum, and before that she was curator of Indigenous Studies with the Glenbow Museum in Calgary for over 20 years. She is a 2020 recipient of the YWCA Women of Distinction Award in Arts and Culture, and congratulations on that still, Beth. And it's over to you now.
Great. Good morning, everybody, here in Vancouver, BC. It is 10 a.m. in the morning, so, and I know that many of you joining from England, it's in the early evening, so it's lovely to be here with you. As you already know, I'm Beth Carter. I am the curator here at the Bill Reid Gallery. As we always like to do in Vancouver and in North America now, it is becoming very common to give a territorial acknowledgement. So I would like to acknowledge that I am coming to you from the unceded ancestral territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. And as an educational organization, the Bill Reid Gallery strongly is so grateful to be able to do our work and our daily work on these beautiful territories. A big part of what we do is educational. We are constantly trying to bring forward the ideas of the connections and the intersections of art and culture for people. And the Northwest Coast region, it goes all the way from Alaska, from the Tlingit territory and the Alaska Panhandle, all the way down to the border between Washington State and Oregon State in the US. So here in BC, I hope that some of you will have a chance to come and visit us in person and maybe be tempted to take a trip out this way after I give you just a brief sneak peek of what we do here at the Bill Reid Gallery. So Bill Reid, let's just take a look here. I've got my helper, Sarah. She is helping me with the camera. Bill Reid was one of Canada's most famous Indigenous artists. He was of Haida ancestry, and he was born in 1920. And he became, grew up outside of his culture. His mother was had gone to residential school, and there's a lot of discussion around the terrible history of residential schools now. And so when she had her children, she did not teach them anything about their Haida ancestry. Maybe come down a little bit. Bill Reid only started to learn about his ancestry in his early 20s, and he was able to go to Haida Gwaii, start to discover the art, and he really fell in love with Haida art and became a master of the art form. He had to do a lot of studying because at that time, this was in the early 1940s, Indigenous art had been really relegated to museums and libraries. There was very little left in the community, and we're just going to swing around here and walk over to see some of the other items in our exhibition. The first thing I'd like to show you is this amazing miniature tea set that is made by Bill Reid when he was 12 years old. And he was, I love to show this piece. It's made out of blackboard chalk, and it's very, very detailed. And it really shows that Bill Reid had an innate curiosity about art and culture from a very young age. And his skill of doing manual dexterity of art forms was really incredible. So he made this as a gift for his sister, and it really shows the lid of the teapot even can come off. He is, to make something like this out of such a fragile material at such a young age is very, very special. He went on to become very interested in all the art forms. He loved poetry, music, of all types, writing, and he went on to become a CBC radio announcer. CBC is the equivalent of the BBC in England. He had to do, as I said, a lot of studying about his own Haida art forms. He, as a young lad or young man living in Toronto, working for the CBC, he was looking for something to do as a hobby, and he ended up enrolling for a goldsmithing course. So let's just swing over to look at this. Here's a set of bracelets. When he went to Haida to visit his grandfather, he had an opportunity to see some beautiful bracelets that had been made by his great-great-uncle, who was named Charles Edenshaw. And Charles Edenshaw was one of the master carvers of the 1800s. This art form had really gone underground due to the colonial legislations of the government of Canada, something called the Indian Act that forbade ceremonial activities and social gatherings. It's sometimes called the potlatch ban. And this came into place in the mid-1800s and continued until the 1950s. So when Bill Reid was first getting interested in the art form, the arts were no longer really being produced, and he had a desire to try his hand at creating some of these pieces. So you can see in this case, there's a range of beautiful bracelets in silver and gold, all made by Bill Reid. He learned European goldsmithing techniques, and then he started to bring together the goldsmithing techniques of Europe with the designs and concepts of the Northwest Coast. This is a beautiful bracelet that you're looking at right here that shows the repoussé technique, which is a European technique that he was the first person to bring to Northwest Coast art. So the Bill Reid Gallery really celebrates Bill Reid's work and also his legacy. And we are, as was stated, we are opened in 2008. And we have a large collection of Bill Reid's beautiful jewelry, but he also did go out and also work in printmaking and painting, and then eventually large sculpture. Let's just turn and look at some of these pieces here. These are beautiful red cedar cases that you're seeing the works in, and that were designed to help bring some of the outdoor rainforest inside the gallery. These pins here that we're looking at right now, Bill had to go into the archives at the American Museum of Natural History, and he took designs and drawings that anthropologists had gathered, and he reinterpreted them as jewelry. And through this way, he was really helping to bring awareness and understanding to the art form in a time when it was not easily accessible to the general public. After the potlatch ban was withdrawn, let's take a look at the painting. This is a print done by Bill Reid at a later date, and you can see that he is taking Northwest Coast art forms and reinterpreting them in his own way. So he started out just copying designs, and then very quickly transformed into creating new and interesting works. When he first started as a jeweler, he just really wanted to be a contemporary designer, but the Northwest Coast Haida style kept drawing him back, and he eventually became known as, really recognized as a Haida artist. I would like to just show you some of his other very contemporary works here. This necklace is, we call it the horse barnacle necklace. He was inspired by the world around him, and he really brought the idea of barnacles and sea life into this very contemporary necklace, which is a real technical feat for him to do. Let's take a look at this. This is the, I hope you can see this. This is an amazing wooden sculpture that was made into a necklace, and he's trying to explore the idea of transformation. How this is called the Dogfish Woman necklace, and the dogfish in Northwest Coast society and culture and Haida society, every being has a supernatural being associated with it. So this dogfish and also can transform into a woman. And so the top part of the necklace is the woman, and then the dogfish spirit is hovering behind her in the necklace. Again, a really interesting approach to creating an art piece, a wearable art piece. So Bill Reid, unfortunately, did develop Parkinson's disease. And so by the early 1980s, when he was in his late 50s, early 60s, he started to really suffer, and he could no longer do this very fine, detailed work. So he started to move into creating much more monumental works. He explored creating totem poles, he explored creating full-size canoes, and most wonderfully, he created these massive bronze sculptures. This is the sculpture, one of his last pieces, created in the 1980s. It's called Mythic Messengers. It's about 30 feet long, and it weighs over 3 tons. It's a very heavy piece. It was created through the lost wax method of casting. It's very much inspired by everything Bill had learned about Haida art. It incorporates Haida design, but it also frees the figures and represents them in a way that had never been seen before. So it is bronze, and it has a dark copper patina on it that kind of makes it look like the slate material argillite that is also commonly found in Haida Gwaii. So the Bill Reid Gallery celebrates Bill and his legacy. I've only shown you a couple of things of Bill Reid's, but he was very inspired by storytelling and also by the ancient traditions of the Haida people, but he only was able to learn those later in life. I'd like to look at this totem pole, which is a feature piece in the exhibition. This was carved by James Hart, Chief Idansu James Hart, and it's a memorial pole in honor of Bill Reid. And it's so special for us to have it here in the gallery. It is made of red cedar. It is quite tall. It's probably 30 feet tall. And it is depicting a number of symbols that were very important to Bill Reid. This here at the bottom is a wasco, and you can see it's a huge supernatural being that is actually half wolf and half killer whale. And if you look at the back of you can see the curvy wolf tail and the double-finned killer whale. So we know it's a supernatural being that is associated with one of Bill Reid's clan crests. Above that, we it's hard to show you on the screen. We have the wolf design, which was Bill's secondary clan crest. And above that, let's back up a bit. We have the copper shield, which is called a copper. It's a symbol of wealth and identity for Northwest Coast people. And this one is also decorated with a wolf design. And at the very, very top, we're going to walk away a bit, is the raven design. And the raven is Bill's main crest figure. And you can see that I'm not sure if there's enough clarity, but in the chest of the raven is the face. It's a portrait of Bill Reid. So James Hart created this beautiful totem pole in honor of Bill as a memorial for him as part of, and it lives here permanently at the Bill Reid Gallery. I would like to just show you a couple of paintings from our current exhibition that is, we always have more than one exhibition. So we have a permanent exhibition on Bill Reid, and we also have exhibitions that are celebrating emerging and established artists from the Northwest Coast. And we change these exhibitions several times per year. So right now we have an exhibition called True to Place. It is an exhibition featuring 10 contemporary Indigenous painters from the coast. Because I am not Indigenous, I always work with an Indigenous guest curator. And so the guest curator for this show is Carrie Lynn Victor, who is from the Stolo. So if we come over this way, hopefully you're getting a sense of how the exhibits look here. This is the introduction, and Carrie Lynn wanted us to think of paintings as a type of portal. So we're entering through the canvas portal into the exhibition. This is a beautiful painting by a young emerging artist named Athena Pika, and it features a sturgeon. A sturgeon is this massive type of fish that we find in the Fraser River. The Fraser River, which goes through Vancouver, was a very, very important river for the local Indigenous people. It was where it was one of the big salmon rivers of North America, and it was one of the reasons why Vancouver was settled here, because of the allure of the salmon fishing. The sturgeon is a protected species. They can live for over 150 years and become about 14 feet long. So they're this massive, gentle fish, but it has these sharp spine down the back of the fish. This is a Coast Salish designed piece. So you'll see it's a bit different from the work that I just showed you of Jim Hart's and Bill Reid's. It has slightly different shapes, the circle and the trigons, rather than the ovoid and the U shapes. So this is a beautiful emerging artist. If we just swing around, we'll look at also another artist from the Snuneymuxw First Nation named Elliot Whitehill. And this is a beautiful story of an origin story for the Snuneymuxw people, where the people are coming from the sky and landing on a local mountain. And you can see the mountain also has its own supernatural being, and the water below, and the people kind of coming down from the sky. This is a really unique style of painting with lots of texture and activity in it. And Elliot is also an emerging artist who is just finishing his master's degree at Emily Carr University here in Vancouver. I'm a little bit unclear on time. How's our time doing?
You're doing very well. We are 19 minutes in, so you've got about 5 minutes left if you want to speak a bit more and show us a bit more.
I get going and then I'm not sure. Let's walk over here and we'll take a look at a couple more pieces of Bill Reid. This is one of Bill Reid's most famous sculptures. He did this sculpture in a number of different formats over the years. This is a mid-sized one. He started off very small, originally just on a tiny wooden version of this. It's an ancient story of the raven. And the raven is a very important figure for Northwest Coast. It was one of Bill Reid's main clan figures, but it is also known as a trickster or a transformer. And we see many art pieces that showcase raven. This is, he then went on to do a very large version of this, which you can find at the Museum of Anthropology at the University of British Columbia. This is a mid-sized version made out of onyx. And by the time that this was made, Bill was quite advanced in his Parkinson's, so he worked closely with another stone carver to fulfill his vision. And he was very curious to see how the work could be transformed into a stone. So this shows us raven. It's in three-dimensional. You can see just the curiosity in the head of the raven. And it is an origin story from northern Haida. And it is basically telling how raven, after the Great Flood, was flying around looking to see what had survived after the flood. And he heard a noise coming from a shell, a big shell lying on the beach. When he came down close, the shell opened up and there were these strange little beings emerging from the shell. And I just love the humor and character that Bill Reid has provided for each of the little human beings. these were the first men, and they're trying to hide inside the shell to avoid the teasing of the raven and the curiosity of the raven. And eventually raven allowed them to come out of the shell, and these became the first men. And women were formed from a different type of shell in a separate story. So this is Raven and the First Men, one of Bill Reid's most famous works. And he did a number of stories about Raven. There are many, many different stories of Raven traveling and getting into trouble and causing change and transformation wherever he goes. So let's just take a look at a couple more from a contemporary artist who lives here, a contemporary Haida artist living here in Vancouver. His name is Corey Bulpit, and this is another Raven story. This is a very contemporary one, combining graffiti arts, but with this really classic raven shape in the middle. Corey has painted this onto a New York City subway map, and it's really talking about how the land and territory of Indigenous people is unceded, and that the land was stolen and taken away from Indigenous people. And so this expression, I'm not sure if you can read it in the graffiti, it says land back. Land back is a really important movement to acknowledge that Indigenous people here in North America have the right to access their land, to have sovereignty over their land, and also to physically get their land back in places. Of course, things have really changed in these days, but we here at the Bill Reid Gallery, we are talking about contemporary issues that are very important to Indigenous people today. So this is a beautiful painting by Corey. Corey is also an amazing traditional carver. And right beside this, we have a beautiful raven rattle. And you can see that some of the shapes and designs of this rattle are very similar to his painting, but that they are done in, this would be, is in the shape of a traditional ceremonial rattle with an otter and a bird on the back with connected tongues. And I don't know if you recall, when we looked at the large bronze piece that Bill did, that you might have noticed the connected tongues that were a symbol of transformation and communication. So the Bill Reid Gallery has been here for 14 years, and we love to support Indigenous artists, both established and emerging. Many people are inspired by Bill Reid. He was one of the, because he grew up kind of outside of his culture, and yet he was also really studied and became connected to his Haida ancestry. He helped to bridge both the Indigenous and non-Indigenous worlds for many young artists. And he also led the way for artists to start to be able to have a career in contemporary art here on the Northwest Coast. So I'm going to come around to this side. Here, we'll do this. There we go. Hi there. I don't know if there's any questions. That was such a quick tour of the exhibitions. There's, you know, you could come and really spend several hours, but.
Thank you so much, Beth. That's been really, really interesting. How special is technology that we can be here at 6 o'clock in the evening and see your tour at 10 o'clock in the morning on the other side of the world.
Yes.
There are indeed some questions. So Jelinda has got some questions for you. I think you may have answered one or two of them already. So how many Haida people are there now? She asks. And then she also has a question about the pictures, if they were in oil or in acrylic.
Okay, so here on the Northwest Coast of North America, the Haida people and most of the Indigenous people here on the Northwest Coast were severely affected by disease, smallpox, cholera, those sorts of things in the early days of exploration and colonialism. Almost 90%, over 90% of the community died because of these diseases. So we're now, I believe the Haida people, I don't have exact numbers, but it's a very small population. I think around 3,000 to 5,000 people. I could easily look that up, or you could do, I think there's lots of resources online about the Haida people. The Haida people, so it's a little odd because Bill Reid is from the Haida people. The Haida people are more northern BC. So quite far, it's a couple of hours flight north of Vancouver to get to Haida Gwaii. If any of you ever have the opportunity, it's a really magical, beautiful place to visit. But so is all of the northwest coast of North America. Regarding, Bill worked in pretty much every medium. He wasn't really a painter himself. He worked more in printmaking, drawing, sketching. He did do some painting, but carving and sculpture, even his jewelry, I always think of him as being a sculptor at heart. He was really making sculpture out of jewelry. For the other paintings, they are acrylic on both of Athena's and Elliot's paintings I showed were acrylic on wood panel.
Okay, thank you. I've got a further question, and this one is from Katrina Dring, who says, thank you for the tour, first of all, and then says, you mentioned about working with Indigenous guest curators for your special exhibitions, which she thinks is great. And she's curious about the audiences that you have visiting the gallery and how you encourage Indigenous audiences to participate and feel welcome.
Yes, great question. So the gallery is here located in the middle of downtown Vancouver. So we do have quite a large tourist audience. So we expect that, especially in the summertime when Vancouver is quite busy with tourists and there's cruise ships and things like that. But we also offer free admission to Indigenous people all the time. And we have many Indigenous community members coming to visit the gallery to see the work of their friends and colleagues and family. We do host a number of events that are public talks, workshops. Just last weekend, we held a workshop that was specifically for Indigenous community members. It was a weaving workshop. And so there were a dozen people participating in that workshop, and that's part of our giving back to the community to offer specific items for, or specific events for the community. We also do K-12 education programs. And also we have a lot of university classes coming to visit the exhibitions as well. So I think for our Indigenous community, we have a lot of people who come in from actually the Northwest Coast and from across the country whenever they're here in Vancouver to visit. So we try to remove as many barriers as possible for their participation. And then I should just say a little bit more about the Indigenous guest curators. It is one thing we struggle with. We do not have a lot of trained Indigenous curators yet. I think there's more people becoming interested. So usually I'm working with somebody who has an area of interest or knowledge. For example, Carrie Lynn for the painting shows, she is a painter and muralist herself. She's very well connected within the community, and so she is able to have strong opinions and ideas that are what we bring forward in the exhibition. And then as the in-house curator, I work with her to help facilitate what she wants to achieve with the exhibition.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. I'm afraid that we're already at the end of our 30 minutes. So I'm going to wrap this up. And may I suggest that if people have other questions, that they can send them to Ella, and that maybe Ella can be in touch with you, Beth, to answer them via her. Would that be all right?
Yes, please. And also my email address is available on our website, on the
Okay.
billreidgallery.ca website. So if anybody wishes to contact me directly, I'm more than happy to have that. So yes, please do check our website at billreidgallery.ca to see the range of programs, exhibits, and activities that we offer here. And I hope that for any of you, if you're ever passing through Vancouver, that you will stop in and visit the gallery in person. It will be a much better experience than what you're able to see online, I promise.
Okay. Well, I can see already some thank you coming up. That was brilliant. And also, yeah, just to word that again, thank you very much, Beth. It's been really interesting and pleasant to be in your gallery in this particular way. And have a good day. And all of the others that have been listening, most of you, it's probably have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.